Hey, welcome to Guitar Knobs, the guitars, gear, noise, and nonsense podcast, hosted today by these knobs.
Tony Dudzik, Pick Guardian.
Brandon Wong Pickups.
Hey, that's me, Todd Novak. We are super duper happy that you are joining us for this episode of the Guitar Knobs podcast.
Happy.
Especially since now we have a battery in the Bluetooth mouse and we can actually click on the button to make it work.
I like powered mice.
I could have in an hour.
I'm definitely going to bring a backup. You know,
pack of backups.
Yeah. So we've got someone super special on the line.
JP Henry from Henry Amplification.
Yes, sir. Sounded mighty smooth and sweet, rivaling Jared's golden throat as well.
Welcome.
JP, where are you calling from?
I'm calling from rainy, freezing New Jersey.
Oh boy,
right outside of New York City.
Yeah.
Jersey.
Okay. We had a couple. We just had a fellow Jerseyite, Scott DeBockler from SNK Pedals on. We just actually did that last week.
Oh, I don't think I knew him. I'll have to look into that.
Oh man, you guys got to get together. He makes some sweet pedals.
Is that an actual city? Rainy, freezy?
It's actually east, also known as Rutherford. But yes, today it's rainy, freezy.
Nice.
I was about to just kind of pile on the Jersey joke, and I'm like, I'm not going to do that.
No, it's fine. I'm originally from Texas, actually. So the Jersey thing, I've been here for pretty much my whole life.
Hey, you don't sound like a resident Jersey guy. Like that's
No,
been there all his life.
Yeah, I've avoided the accent.
Yeah.
But yeah, everybody brings that up to me. Where's the accent? You don't sound like Tony Soprano,
Right.
We think it's in your best interest not to make so many jokes about Jersey, you see.
It is the Garden State after all.
Is everything there compared to Texas smaller or what?
Yeah.
Yeah. Oh, much smaller. Yeah.
Let's see. Well, everything's smaller except the big sound of your amps, my man. So we're going to talk about that at length through the rest of the podcast. Everyone who is joining for the very first time, welcome to our show. What do we do on this show, Jared?
Oh man, we talk to boutique builders of pedals and guitars and amps, and sometimes we talk to the big guys too. And we like to get into how they got started and where they're going. And that's our shtick here. We love guitars,
Yes, sir.
3 bags full.
All right.
That's right.
So that's what we're doing tonight. We're going to talk to a new friend of ours who makes handmade, hand-wired, hand-built, hand-everything amps that you play with a guitar.
With your hands.
We've got just a little bit of... we're not calling it news anymore because by the time we try to get a couple of these in the can so we're not strung out.
Let's call it olds instead.
It's just announcements. Announcements. All right. I have a few things. Do you want me to go first?
Yeah.
Okay.
You never go first.
I had the supreme privilege of meeting. This is one of those weird things where the digital life meets real life. I had one of our early patrons, Derek Fitzer, who if you've listened to the show, you've heard him mentioned many times at the end of the show. He contacted me and asked me to come speak at the school that he teaches. He teaches interactive arts and development and software design, all kinds of stuff. And that is at the Southwestern Career Academy. So I visited there today and got to speak to his class. And it was a supreme privilege and a pleasure. Really enthusiastic kids who got some great ideas, and they shared with me the podcast that they are working on, which is really exciting.
Oh, that's cool.
And we just talked about, how to make your creativity and dreams come to realization.
All it takes is a AA battery.
I bet that
in my
was,
case, yes.
That had to have been pretty rewarding.
That's cool.
Honestly,
That's
just
very
to be
cool.
asked that made my day, man. I can't. It was really great. So thank you to the class at Southwestern Career Academy. You guys are great, and much luck to you. And thank you, Derek Fitzer, for being a great example to those kids and for supporting our show. We really appreciate it.
Absolutely.
I also want to point out that all of our previous episodes, so we've interviewed a lot of people this year, everybody, And we're going to probably go through a roll call towards the end of the year just to remind everybody and ourselves of what a great year it was. If you want to check out those older episodes, if you're like, what? I've already heard all the episodes on Spotify or iTunes.
You have not.
You have not. Where can you go to hear those, Tony?
Well, you could go to the Guitar Knobs website.
That is true.
And stream them from there.
Correctamundo.
That's where I go.
That's where you should go. So make sure you check out all of our older episodes. We reference a lot of people from past episodes, and don't go maybe not all the way back because those are a little rough.
Start with like episode 12.
Anyway, so I just wanted to bring that up. And anything from you dudes?
Yeah, I don't have anything this week.
Okay.
Are we doing our what's in our
We're just about to.
Oh,
Why don't
okay.
you just start that off? Tony, what's
Okay.
going on in your music world this week?
Well, this week, today, this day, I scored, I think, a spectacular deal.
I thought you were just going to leave it with I scored, and I was like, hey, all right.
I scored. No. So anyhow, I've had kind of a hankering for a Vox guitar, either a Phantom or a Teardrop, like Brian Jones had. And so I was digging around a little bit, and there's a company out in Oregon called Phantom Guitar Works. And they've been making probably better than the original Phantom or Vox replicas. And I found one on Reverb at a very good price. The seller had just reduced it a little bit. It's in smoking good condition. And to boot, it is from the early to mid 90s, which at that time, Phantom was building, I believe, everything in the U.S. I think now they may assemble their things from import parts, but so this is it's an old one. It's one of the probably I'm going to say probably the first generation of the Phantoms, and that's kind of and for those who don't know, the Phantom model is a kind of a 5-sided.
It's a polygon.
It's a polygon.
It's a round. It's a rounded.
It's a pentagon.
It's like a
but an offset pentagon.
It's like an angled egg.
Yeah, it's more or less.
Yeah.
So I mean, this thing I got it for. I kind of feel it's about half of what it should have been.
Yeah. Honestly, man, if they had a different headstock, I think they'd be much more successful. Well,
that's the original.
I know it's the original headstock, but that's the kind of thing that's like.
But what's really cool about Phantom Guitar Works is they actually own the trademarks for all of the original Vox body shapes and headstock
They
shapes.
beat Mike Robinson from Eastwood to that, I guess.
Yeah, I mean, he just makes a couple of changes. But,
Yeah.
But anyhow, so yeah, it's I'm really excited to get it. It's supposed to be here on Thursday, a couple of days from now, and
you might have to sell that to me so I can paint it black and put a gold pickguard on it. That would be sweet.
I guess not. No.
Oh, man.
No, none for you.
Heartbeat.
So that's what's going on in my music work week.
Sweet. How about let's hear from JP?
Let's see. This week, I did a little guitar safariing with a friend of mine the other day, just yesterday, actually. Today's Tuesday. Yeah. So Monday afternoon, we went to Retro Fret Guitars in Brooklyn.
Oh, yeah.
And I tried a Fender Electric 12, a 1966
Oh man,
Electric 12.
Yeah.
And I loved it. I'm going to have to hunt a little more to find one. It was more of a condition. I mean, it was a fair price. It was a little beat up. So, if it had been maybe in mint condition, I might have figured out a way to pull the trigger on it because it was really nice.
the beat up ones are the best ones.
It was, I think if the price reflected it,
Yeah.
kind of like if I felt like I
gotcha.
was, but it's a great store. I don't want to make them sound like it's overpriced or anything because it's not at all. That very, very cool store. And
Yeah.
they have a great, talk about the Voxes. They had a whole bunch. They had a Vox 12-string Phantom,
Yep.
I think. And a couple others hanging on the wall too. Very cool.
Yeah, those are what I found because I've made quite a few pick guards for Phantoms now, and those guards shrink more than any guard that I've ever worked on before. So I have people actually send me bodies, and there's two versions. There's the UK version, which are all pretty good. The pickups are really good, and then there's the Italian versions that aren't as good and not as well made. So
full pickups.
yeah, you have to be careful on some of the vintage stuff. But also, if you go to my website, you can. I actually made a 12-string Fender 12 replica.
Oh, nice.
That's actually
I'll have to check that
the
out.
second one that I did, and it's it's slightly different, but it's actually in a lot of ways a little more.
Is that the one with the droopy banana?
That's the droopy banana.
Oh, the headstock.
Yeah.
It
That's a
reminds
great
me.
way to describe it.
It reminds me of the popsicle that Alex is taking a lick on at the in Clockwork Orange at the disco.
Wow, that's so much more accurate than the hockey stick that everybody calls it. That's fantastic.
Yeah, well, my brothers.
Cool.
Nice.
All right. So J-Rod, what you got?
All right, well, so I tried out those Strymon pedals a while back that our good friend let us borrow for a little bit. But I bought, that inspired me to mess with a pedal called the Midnight, and formerly known as Red House Electronics, which is now Native Electronics.
Native Audio.
Native Audio, I'm sorry. And anyway, I messed with that pedal until I got it dialed in, and I've had it over a year, and I just now figured it out. So I thought that was kind of funny. I know, right? I mean, when you buy a pedal, the first thing you do is mess with it until you figure it out. Well, I just finally did that, and the thing is fantastic.
Yeah.
I got the sound I want out of it. I kind of like it better than the big giant Mutron biphase that I have. The only difference is the biphase actually can do true stereo. However, that Red House Native Audio.
You have the old one, so it's okay to call it a Red
Yeah,
House.
I guess. I don't know. We'll let Mike be the judge of that. But but anyway, I got that to sound.
Bro, it's Native Audio, bro.
Yeah, bro. Yeah, bro. You're coming back here too, bro. Anyway, yeah, man. That's so I finally figured that thing out. It sounds really great. And another thing I wanted to just kind of mention is, I don't know, for all you guys out there that have, or gals, have several guitars, you always end up just kind of getting that one out of the case, and you always go to one of those the most, right? Well, I've been noticing, I do. Okay. I've been noticing getting out my 79 Les Paul Custom. That's just, it's a natural color, but it's just kind of orange and wore through other places where the maple neck's showing through. And that's like my favorite guitar.
Nice.
It's like, it's certainly not the best one I own, because I've got more that are, worth more or what other people would much more, prefer over. But I don't know why, man. This old heavy 1979 Les Paul Custom, I've just been getting it out every time I go get out a guitar.
Well, all right.
So I was thinking about refinishing that.
No!
And then Tony told me
no.
no.
What are you doing?
Sparkle top
No. If anything, you do a black back and call it a day.
Nah.
Little Mick Ronson
Mickey
action.
Ronson.
Nah.
All
no,
right.
I'm not
Todd,
going to.
how about you? What's going on in your musical world?
Well, I played a whole lot of guitar this week, but that's not the thing that I'm going to mention. I've got 3 daughters, one of whom is she plays stand-up bass, or there's a bunch of different words for that, but the big giant bass. And she just joined band at school, and really quickly, I think she's like, Dad, how about that electric bass you have up there? I got a bass we call Stinky. It's a really old PV Fury. It's a really
You
great
mentioned
bass.
that in some
It's
of
a
the
great
early
bass.
episodes.
Yeah, it's a great bass. But it's stinky because when I got it, it was covered in old beer, and I'm pretty sure a lot of cat urine. So it took a while to rid Stinky of the. Yeah, I mean, it's still I can still smell it a little bit, but anyways, it's a great bass. So I took her to the music store, our local one. It's called Music Go Round. It's where you take old gear and you can they'll trade it and sell it and all that business. And so I let her try out a whole bunch of different basses on the wall. So she got to try out lots of different styles, active pickups, 5 strings. I said, put that back, and all kinds of all kinds of other things. And then we plugged in to a bass amp, and she had never physically played through a bass amp. And I picked a nice big Ampeg and turned it up, and she started playing Seven Nation Army, and then she looked at me really quick, and just the look on her face is like, I'm like, uh-oh, she's hooked. So that was really exciting for me.
Oh, that's cool.
Yeah. So it looks like I'm going to be looking for a decent bass amp that is, I guess practice-ish, but not one of those little ones where I just go like, I wish I had a better one. Yeah. I needed to move some air, but I don't need it to shake the house,
Oh no, you got to shake the house.
I got
a
a Fender 50 watt for you, a 212 50 watt Bassman amp.
That's
only $1,000.
Yeah, no thanks.
What are those? The Fender Rumbles are pretty good for not a lot of.
Yeah,
scratch,
they're
you know?
I think 100 watt Fender Rumbles
they
or
might
something like that.
Yeah, I think they have like a 12 and a 15 one. So
Yeah.
the wattage is probably a little different.
I'm pretty sure I'm kind of just gonna wait till like an old PV comes up, because man, those things they still sound good. They're indestructible.
Yes,
and and they're relatively cheap. So first amp, I don't need to go gonzo on. Anyhow, so that's what's going on. Let's talk about some pedals real quick.
1, 2, 1, 2, 3. 4 on the floor.
All right, JP, let us have your 4 on the floor.
My 4 on the floor. I was thinking about this earlier today, and if I could only have 4 pedals with me for a gig, I would go. 2 of them would be Analog Man. There'd be a Prince of Tone and a Sunface.
So let's start with the Prince of Tone first.
Sure. Mm-hmm.
Okay, Prince of Tone. That's up there in the echelon of pedal lore. Tell us all about that.
Well, it's one half of the revered King of Tone, which I've thought about putting my name on the wait list for, but the Prince, I don't think I need the 2 in 1 box like the King of Tone does. So picked up a Prince of Tone, and it just works so well with almost any guitar and amp that I use it with. So if I'm playing a gig and I don't know what the back line's going to be, if I can't bring one of my own amps, it just does what I need it to do for everything from a lighter rhythm type of overdrive to like a full-on lead sustain. I guess that's why so many people like the King of Tone, so they could set each one a little different. But for my purposes, the Prince of Tone and having a couple other choice things before and after it kind of cover all that ground.
Did you buy that secondhand, or was it brand new?
That was brand new. I got that directly from Mike.
So that must have been pretty exciting.
Oh yeah, big time. That was I got the tip that you had to check his website on a certain day of the week to get them in stock.
Mm-hmm.
I think it was like a Wednesday or something. And
if you order it wrong, he goes, "No pedal for you."
Right, exactly.
That's right.
And no pedal for you.
no, come back for 1 year.
That's right.
Yep.
Nice.
So I got it the first time I tried. It was like 8 p.m. and I figured, I had just remembered to check the site, and went on there and tried to add it to my cart, and it went through. So definitely got pretty excited about that.
Oh, to be a builder with that problem.
Seriously.
Oh boy. Well, I'd love to get him on the show. If you put in a good word for me, you know what I'm saying?
Well, I don't know him that well, but he's big on the interwebs all the time.
Yeah.
Big on Instagram and Facebook, I think. So.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
All right. Well, that's quite a big one to start off with. What do you have next?
Well, I would say the Sunface Fuzz is, I pretty much always have it with me. And I guess mine's a medium to higher gain. I don't remember the actual transistor that's in it offhand.
I like exactual. That's a great word.
Exactual.
I'm going to use that.
I make up words all the time, man.
Me too.
I could probably print my own dictionary by the end of the year. But Yeah, it's just a cool fuzz. It works particularly well with my Strat, which I play. My pretty much like you're talking about your 79 Les Paul being, or someone was, I forget which one of you just saw. Jared, gotcha. My Strat's a Mexican road worn Strat that I kind of picked up on a whim and replaced the bridge, replaced the pickups. So that's become my main guitar. And again, it's something that, altogether under $1,000, and it's just my favorite guitar.
That's awesome.
Beats out a lot of vintage pieces and some newer expensive ones. But anyhow, it works so well with the Sunface that if I'm bringing one to a gig, I bring the other. That's just the way it works.
Now, the Sunface, I have not played one. Can you explain it? Like, I think at least for me, the key with a good fuzz is how does it work with the mids, right? Especially if you're switching guitars. So, like, is that humbucker friendly? Is it single coil friendly?
If you turn down the gain a bit, it's more humbucker friendly. Otherwise, it gets a little out of control pretty fast.
Mm-hmm.
So lowering the gain helps a lot with humbuckers, and I suppose it would depend a lot on the guitar. Another guitar that I gig with a lot is a Gibson 339. I call it my bankruptcy special. When the Memphis factory was going under last year, I snagged it for a great price.
Nice. And so not your bankruptcy.
Not my bankruptcy.
Yeah.
Not yet. There'll be hopefully there won't be any bankruptcy special Henrys out there, but you never know. Stranger things have happened, right?
Yeah.
So that's the other guitar that I gig with the most. I bring them both out most of the time.
That's cool. What color is that?
Cherry red.
Right.
On the Sunface, there's, the volume on the left and then the fuzz on the right. What's that smaller center?
Oh, the sundial.
Yeah, what's that do?
It's a bias control for one of the transistor stages, and it's sort of you could kind of do like that gated fuzz, kind of under bias, choked out sort of sounds where it's cool. It almost sounds like the pedal's dying a little bit.
So you get like a dead bad effect.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And then the other direction kind of smooths it out and almost sounds more like an overdrive when you go in that direction with it.
Very cool.
So really like straight up the middle. In normal conditions with the germanium transistors, when the room isn't too hot or too cold, because they do have an effect on the sound.
Right.
Straight up the middle is kind of like ideally where you want it. But if it's a little, I forget if it's cold, if it gets less bias or more, but there's a method to it to sort of stabilize it.
Right.
And that's
Wow.
very, very cool.
Excellent, man. How about number 3?
Number 3, I'm going to be boring. It's just an RC booster, but I could use that either with my clean sound or after either of the pedals I mentioned.
Mm-hmm.
So if I'm using the Prince of Tone, if I have a good rhythm sound on that, the RC booster, I'll take it over the top for leads. Same with the Sunface. It'll really help that cut through, which, as you mentioned before, can be a problem with some fuzz pedals with the mids. So in the context of a full band playing, it's kind of easy for your sound to get lost going through that.
Mm-hmm.
And the RC just gives it that extra bit of something to push it through.
I'm trying to remember what the RC stands for.
I'm not sure what it stands for. That's I might look it
Tony,
up right now.
Do you know regarding like the because the EP is for the Echoplex, right? And the RC is for what?
Radio control.
All right.
I have one of those cars.
Have another call boy, Tony. Do you happen to know?
I don't know.
Okay, interesting.
It's kind of complex. I mean, you got a gain, you got a volume, you got treble and bass, and you can switch from gain 1 and 2. So of course, then the bypass is kind of like you're on and off, but
yeah.
I don't see anything on their website
knows?
as to what it stands for, actually. Yeah,
They make a heck of a great product, though.
Yeah. But I keep everything straight up the middle on mine, and the gain will vary. The gain will kind of depend how loud my amp is and which guitar I'm playing.
Mm-hmm.
So really, if it only had a gain pedal or a gain knob, I'd be fine with that.
I would like a 3-stage booster, like a booster that gave me, like, if I clicked it once, kind of almost like Yeah, you click it once and it's set for like flat. You click it again, and it helps you out if you got humbuckers. You click it again, and you get your single coil. Yeah, somebody make that. I need that. That's what I need. That's all I need to be a good guitarist.
There's got to be something out there like that,
right?
Click me once, shame on you. Click me twice, shame on me.
I mean, as long as there's a suck volume, you can turn down.
Yeah.
There's got to be. I mean, there's so many 2-stage pedals out there. I feel like there's got to be a 3-stage one.
Right. Yeah.
Why stop at 3?
Yeah.
No, keep going.
Hey, I know. You know what? That I need to. Johnny Balmer at Alchemy. There's another challenge. I just sent him a challenge that was kind of ridiculous, but not a challenge. I just said, hey, if you can make this, I'll buy it from you. I think he was politely reluctant to want to do that. But anyway,
did it have a momentary switch on it?
It was actually. I'll tell you what it was. Do you guys want to hear what it is, real quick?
Yes.
Yeah, why not?
Okay, right after he gives us number 4. All right, what's number 4?
Number 4 ties into your last podcast. It's a Strymon Flint.
Nice.
Yeah, that's if I know I'm going to play through an amp that has reverb and trem on it already, I might not bring that. But if I don't know what I'm going to be plugging into, it's got to be on my board because it's like a safety net. It's the spring reverb's fantastic. The harmonic trem is super cool, especially because not many amps have them. And the other trems, and I don't really use the other verbs on it that much just because it's not my style. But all 3 tremolos are really useful on there.
They're
Very, very cool.
really good pedals.
Yeah, they just sound phenomenal. They really sound great.
It was an honor and a privilege talking to those guys, and we learned a whole lot. If you haven't checked out the Strymon episode yet, everybody, go check it out.
Awesome.
Excellent. Nice 4 on the floor. Thank you, my man.
So what was this this mystery pedal that you talked to Johnny about?
Well, okay, so we interviewed Stephen Burnett from he's across the world in Australia with Honey Tea. And one of his 4 on the floor was the Cockfight from Electro Harmonics. I've literally had that in my basket on reverb like 4 times. And for whatever reason, I know the reason why I haven't got it. Because it only has 1 foot switch. I'm like, okay, well, I would love to run the fuzz and then hit the wah, the talk wah, right? I want to be able to do that. But with that pedal, you can only either have 1 or 2 or both at the same time. You can't engage the other one.
Drag. Yeah.
And what's nice about that pedal is that you can also select the wah to be in front or before, in front or before, while stand at the same time.
Upside down, sideways.
You can do it before or after the fuzz, which is a completely different sound.
Yeah, I could.
Or is it the fuzz before or after the wah? Anyways, it swaps which one's in front of the other, and it is a radically different sound. So with that, and I was thinking, the price is really good on this, and I actually like the way it sounds, and I can imagine it on one specific song, and I can't do it because I need to be able to engage that, and if I'm going to buy that, I want the fuzz to work too because it's a great sounding fuzz too. So, anyways, somebody wants to make that. There you go. There's a market. Just made a pedal. Boom.
It's a cool idea.
There you go.
Very cool.
Yeah. I don't know what you'd call it. Something naughty, I'm sure. Anyhow, well, that was fun. So let's see here. J.P. Henry of Henry Amplification.
Right.
We have him on the show because he makes some. Well, I'm seeing him a lot on Instagram and stuff, and so I said, let me check this out. Super good dude to talk to, so we got him on the show. Yeah, he agrees too.
Somebody give that dog a treat.
Giacomo agrees with you guys. I knew he'd make a cameo at some point tonight.
Yeah,
That's right.
So we want to find out all about what you're doing out there in New Jersey. Texas boy in New Jersey making hand-wired amps.
Yeah.
Where did you get the bug for guitar?
For guitar, I definitely got that from my father when I was about 12. And you want me to go back that far?
Yeah.
Yeah, sure.
Cool. Yeah. So yeah, started playing around that age. Really just started to sort of develop, my own taste in music. I guess everybody sort of does, junior high, whatever.
Mm-hmm.
And Yeah, it was Metallica and Guns N' Roses, Motley Crue, all that stuff. And my dad really got me into Clapton, which nowadays I think I'm over it now. Not over Clapton, but over the stigma of admitting that I am such a huge Clapton fan, because I was for a while it was like not cool to be like, Clapton's
90s Clapton wasn't right. so awesome.
Exactly. That's what it was.
The Dorothy Hamill haircut and everything.
Yeah. It was when he was all messed up back in the 70s. That's the good stuff.
That's the good, right.
God.
But I think it was, he sort of got me into Clapton and the Beatles, of course, and McCartney. I remember we saw McCartney live back around then, and that was like a real sort of transformative moment, hearing the whole place sing Hey Jude, that things like that, just you never forget. So that's definitely what got the ball rolling.
What was your first guitar?
I guess it was I have my father's 66 Telly.
Oh, geez.
And I guess that was really the first guitar I ever played, which makes me sound super spoiled, but it was there. And that and like an Ibanez acoustic that was laying around the house. So,
well, let's stick with the Telly. How about
that? Still got the Telly. I don't know what happened to the Ibanez, but I still got the Telly.
What's is that just a natural?
It's like a blonde finish.
Yeah.
Blonde,
Nice.
like pickguard, maple cap neck, which at that time they were doing more rosewood fingerboards.
Yeah, I was going to say.
So to get a 66 maple cap is kind of rare. So,
wow.
Yeah, it really needs a refret, but I don't want to have that done. I think I'm just going to keep it. It's a fretless wonder, and I'm just going to leave it that way at this point.
Wow, that's fun. That's really cool. He was a single owner on that?
Yeah, single owner.
Nice.
Got it. He did have a Strat before that, and I think he traded the Strat for the Telly.
He's a wise man.
Telly was brand new.
What year was the Strat? Do you remember? Would he remember? Do you remember?
It was older. It was like a 63 or 4.
Oh boy!
So that would have been worth a lot more.
Yeah.
just do the transition there. That you're talking like 10 grand more in today's value.
Yeah.
But what can you do?
Yeah. Well, geez. So the next progression is usually people abandon guitar, or they say, "I'm going to make a band with my friends."
Yeah, that happened.
Yeah. Okay.
Well, I guess in a way I abandoned the Fender because I got a BC Rich Mockingbird as my second guitar.
Yeah.
My first official guitar, right?
A little Mick Mars influence there, just
totally.
a little bit.
And like the bright red, I guess it was transparent red.
Yeah.
And it was a fancy one. It was like a neck through. But again, in the early 90s, they weren't really going for much. Now
Right.
I think those old BC Riches actually have some value on the vintage market.
Mm-hmm.
But at the time, I wouldn't say they were giving them away. I mean, I had to work like a whole summer to buy it, but that was my guitar. I didn't want to see I wanted nothing to do with old Fenders at that point.
Right.
So I got that, and
and everybody was out at that time buying all the Les Pauls because of Slash and stuff.
Right. That was just getting to be a thing. Like, Slash brought the Les Paul back, and you were starting to see all the Seattle bands kind of playing old Fenders and things like that.
Yeah.
So like that market was really like about to boom.
Yeah.
And about to turn into, what it is now.
Mm-hmm.
So it was kind of a cool time to be playing, different music. I was playing like Slayer cover songs, all through high school and everything. And it wasn't really, I guess I was about 10 years late on that stuff, but it was a lot of fun.
That's cool.
And I always had the tech bug. Like I learned how to solder when I was like 12, I think. So,
oh man.
So that was happening back then. I wanted to take everything apart.
I was soldering back when I was 12, but I didn't know what I was doing. I was just melting the stuff all over my dad's workbench.
Oh yeah, I definitely didn't know what I was doing.
What is this?
Yeah. I'd say it probably wasn't till like I went to school for audio engineering at William Patterson University here in Jersey.
Wow, okay.
And I had a great professor who's still there, this guy Dave Kersner, and I hope he listens to this because I'm dropping his name. But he kind of got us into, aside from signal flow and, the really fundamental things.
That is a great band.
It's not it's actually a great band name. How did nobody come up with that, right?
I don't know.
But aside from getting us into all that, like, AC signal flow and things like that, he kind of was like, if you want to be useful at a studio and you want to hold a job, you got to learn how to solder XLR cables and quarter-inch cables and do all those little things that nobody really wants to do. So he made sure we all knew how to do that. And that was really, really practical.
That's cool.
I worked at a studio for about 5 years and always hung around the tech. And although, I didn't get too messy with things, like he did teach me how to like recap the channel modules from the old Focusrite board we had and things like that. So there was always like that sort of thing going on along with the music for me. There was like, kind of had like one hand in the technical side and another hand in the musical side.
I think that's fun. I think that's what a lot of people are responding to these days because it's so much more accessible. I have likened it to the idea when you have, if you buy a motorcycle, it's like, well, you better dang well know how to repair that motorcycle.
Have some wrenches.
Right?
Right. Or else it's going to cost you a lot. Right.
Right. But that's also an exciting part because it makes it just makes the whole experience a little bit more intimate. Like if you take a guitar apart, like the first time I completely disassembled a guitar after waking up from fainting, what have I done? I realized I was like, wow, this is real. I can do this. I can put this back together. And for people who have done that all their life, they're like, why is that a big deal? Well, if you haven't, it's a little bit of a scary experience because you're afraid you're going to ruin it. But when you put it back together, you become just very familiar with every little piece and part. And I think that's actually pretty special. Same thing with building a pedal for the first time or definitely not trying to repair an amp on your own the first time.
Getting that 1500 volt shock.
Right. But maybe replacing your speaker, that's a fair thing to try to accomplish. And I think that's what makes this, I don't want to say hobby, but this type of enthusiastic thing. What am I trying to say? It's not an enthusiastic thing.
I think it's an enthusiastic thing. I think.
Okay,
that's it.
I like that. Yeah.
Yes. Let's got
say
an uncontrollable urge.
Enthusiastic tomfoolery. How about that? That's a good word. But
but it's one of the few that you can actually, without too much knowledge needing to be obtained and not too much money, at least at an entry level, you can have that experience. And you can grow into lots of things, and I think that's kind of special about what we're into.
I agree. I mean, little things like fixing the output jack on your guitar. I mean, I remember doing that, at that age and feeling like I could rule the world. Exactly. You're like, wow, I don't have to take this and give somebody $50 to do that. Not that that's a bad thing because there's people
you feel
making
empowered by it a little bit.
Totally. Mm-hmm.
I'm not going to give my money to the man. Oh, that's cool. So now after you're going through engineering class, you're obviously probably faced with a lot of options on what to do with that. How did you land on amplifiers?
Well, actually, that came a lot later. So I really wanted to be like a recording engineer. And at the time, I was sort of like starting in that field when you could actually do it and make a living doing it. And about 5 years later, the studios were all closing up. All the big studios in New York City, I shouldn't say all of them, but most of them closed or were bought privately. I was like 25 and could barely afford to, live on my own at that point. So it was, that was sort of the reality of, and this is, I worked at a great studio where our clients were like Dream Theater, Anthrax. Got to meet Keith Richards and Eric Clapton on a blues album that they guested on. Yeah. It's like, so I really felt like I stepped into this fantastic situation. And then 5 years later, it was like, wow, this just does not pay the bills. So, and I think that was like a harsh reality of that entire industry for a lot of people at that time. So we're talking 2005.
Yes.
iPods.
That was a rough time for the recording industry.
Yeah, it's not so great now either.
Well,
no, it hasn't gotten much better, right? But that was really when it all crashed. It kind of, I got in it, I guess, late 90s. And at that point in time, all of our projects were still being done to 2-inch analog tape. Pro Tools, we had it, but it wasn't what it became yet. And I'd say about 2-3 years later, everything was being done on Pro Tools. And then about 2 years after that, everybody had Pro Tools at home.
Yep.
And we're doing it then. So, I put together a small garage studio to work with local bands and try to do some of that. But to sustain that long term, I mean, I'm sure some guys were able to turn that into something bigger, but it just became too much of a struggle, after a few years.
It's weird because I've been around. I've written songs and played guitar for many, many years, and the whole idea of recording in my home, recording myself as a guitar player. Okay, yeah, I can probably do that. Recording it is one thing, mastering it is another, mixing it is another. It's like the idea of you can do all of that it's there and it's attainable, but man, you actually need a lot more skills than just the equipment. And I think that's where a lot of people fall down big time.
Absolutely. And it's like everybody could kind of hang their shingle and say, hey, I have a recording studio. And it's like, yeah, but do you have the experience of doing those things? Like I never had any mastering experience, but people would want me to, kind of faux master their album, after I mixed it. And I never felt good doing that. I always tried to convince them to go to a real mastering engineer.
Right.
But some people are like, well, you just make it louder, that's all they do. I'm like, no, it's totally not all they do. It's you're paying for a lot more than that. But
well, let's touch on that really quick. We don't get into recording much, and I'm not going to go down the rabbit hole of like, let's learn all about recording 101, like maybe on another episode. But if you can give us, so you've got recording, you got the mixing, you got the mastering, right? At least, and that's just to get to the point where you can actually go get this made, right? So can you give us just a quick elevator rundown for what each of those stages are? Because I think people really don't know.
Sure. Well, the recording stage, and depending on the type of band you are, could be recorded as live with everyone playing together in a room, or isolated with headphones, or you could sort of like used to call it building the house. You lay the foundation, drums and bass or whatever,
right?
Overdub on top of that, guitars. For us, it was pretty much all guitars, but some could have keyboards there or whatever. And then usually vocals would kind of come last or sit on top of everything else. I guess if it's an instrumental project, you have some leads.
It's kind of a standard rock scenario.
Sure. Then the mixing stage is when you take all those tracks and you blend them together and try to make it sound like a live performance. Or if it was a live performance, then you still try to sort of fit everything into its little frequency range.
And that's, and so you record and then you send the band home and then you mix.
Yeah, mix. Sometimes the artists really want to be there for the mixing. As a mix engineer at the time, I don't know if I still am, but I guess once you do something enough, you always wear the hat, right? So as a mix engineer, I preferred to work alone and then get notes from the artist afterwards.
Right.
So here, give this a listen. Let me know what you think.
Right.
And, they might say 90% of it's great, but here's a few little changes. And then you go back and make the changes and everyone's happy.
So for reference, anybody that's seen like when they do retrospectives on albums, or like when VH1 was doing that behind the music, sometimes you can still find those. Actually, I think they exist on YouTube. You can see those old ones. That was a great show.
They were great. Yeah.
When you see the guy at the big board and he's like, okay, so now I'm going to bring in so-and-so on drums, and like, oh, and here's this. And so that's when they're doing the mixing and leveling everything out to make it sound rounded out and complete.
Yeah. And those shows, I guess they're kind of like deconstructing it, right?
Right.
And those shows to give you little bits and pieces. But yeah, all those elements are basically blended together across the spectrum.
Right.
Between the left and right panning and the frequency range and everything to sort of like create like this final piece of art,
Right. And then you got the mastering.
And then mastering. Yep. And mastering originally was there to make sure that your mix wouldn't, or think of the right way to phrase this. Back when they used to cut vinyl on like a lathe, different frequencies, especially bass frequencies, could actually like, they weren't able to transfer it to the vinyl. Like it would cause a problem in the actual disc itself.
Tony's making lots of gestures about
the
like,
grooves. The grooves go too deep.
His big finger as a needle.
Exactly.
The groove's too deep.
so mastering was originally, at least the way it was taught to me, it was originally created to sort of prevent that from happening, to make sure that your final product was going to transfer properly to vinyl so that people could listen to it and not have any issues with the needle skipping or anything like that from too much bass.
But modern mastering, I guess digital mastering, so you're not talking necessarily about transferring it to vinyl.
That's just loud. People just want it loud.
Yeah.
Loud with, ideally loud with as little distortion as possible, and not the kind of distortion that you want from a pedal or an amp, but like sort of like a frequency distortion that isn't always obvious, but on like a really good sound system might show itself. And so mastering's really to prevent that. It's like, get as much volume as possible. And this is, there's this whole thing about the loudness wars that really started, I guess, in like the early 2000s. And everybody wanted their album to be louder than the album that came out the week before it. And some mastering engineers could do that, and they got a lot of money for doing that. And I swear I can't listen to those albums. Like, they hurt.
Yeah.
Like, there's like a fatigue from listening to stuff from that era that I'm so glad that's over and done with. Like, that's probably the best
a lot of
thing.
The music was.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. That
too. Yeah, there was that.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah, good. Well, hey, I really appreciate you going through that, especially as not a layman, but as a professional recording engineer. That's
it's nostalgic
very helpful
to talk about it, actually.
Yeah.
It kind of takes me back.
So now you're gone from the booth, and now what?
Well, I would say that being a guitarist, recording guitar was always my favorite part of being in the studio. And it sort of helped me to realize what amps worked better than others in those environments. And what, sometimes, you plug in something sounds great in the store, but you stick a microphone in front of it and it's not translating, or the opposite, or it sounds great in the studio, mic'd up close, but when you're playing through it live, it might not really work. So I did a lot of trial and error with different guitarists that I was recording, and with myself as well. And I think that really translated into what I'm doing now with these amps. Like, I'll get into how I started doing amps, but I think learning how to reach that result with the components inside the amp was like mind blowing for me the first time I started to get my head wrapped around it. So seeing like what I could do inside an amp to manipulate things to give me those results, and then seeing why some amps work and some amps don't in that situation.
Can you talk about that just a little bit? You don't have to go into like mega depth about it. But just, I guess, when you say why some amps work in the studio and why they don't, what would some scenarios be?
I would say the biggest one is that the majority of amplifiers are pushing way too much low end information, like low frequency information. That's just unnecessary in a guitar. It's like real subharmonic stuff that's making the entire amp. If you think of the amp like an instrument in and of itself, you're making the amp work a lot harder to push that.
Right.
And if you sort of trim it at certain places along the line, you get a much more usable range of output from it.
Mm-hmm. And then when you get into the mix and the mastering, that's where you're going to get that that desired fullness from that signal. Because like when you're playing in your home and you're just in the upper mids and trebles, it just doesn't sound. It's not awesome sounding. You want that bottom end, But that's only if you're by yourself and you don't have a bass and you don't have all the other stuff,
Oh yeah, we used to get, people would come into the studio, and I'm talking professional musicians. I mean, kids as well, but also the pros, and they'd come in with, these, like dual rectifier, half stacks, and they'd crank them up. And the amount of, like, when you're standing in front of it and you're getting all this low frequency energy, it feels great. You feel like you're shaking you are shaking the entire house at that
feels
point.
Like
right?
rock and roll.
Yeah, that's rock and roll. So yeah, I mean, I don't mean to single out Mesa Boogie, but like, a Marshall half stack, same difference, right?
Sure.
Like you're getting that same thing, but you don't need it. And, you're miking it up and then you're filtering out like everything below 120 hertz. And which is just, at that point, that's rumble, that's mud. Like there is, on like a heavy distorted guitar, there's not much music happening that low, but yet the amp is like working so hard to put that out that if you could like sort of like trim the fat earlier in the process, I've found the results to just be a lot more pleasing to my ears as both a player and somebody listening with some recording experience.
I think that's kind of like the same thing when people are, when we're talking about guitar signal and stuff, and we're talking about making sure we got the mid range present. It's the whole fuzz pedal, or maybe even more classically like a muff pie problem. If you play that in your home, you're like, yes, this sounds amazing. Totally. And then you go plug in with your band, and all you do is you start turning your amp up because you're like, I can't hear it.
Right.
And it's not because it's not loud enough. It's because that signal's getting kind of canceled out.
Yeah, you're not cutting through at all. Like
right.
Nothing is cutting through. And then especially when you have a drummer and a bassist, they need that low frequency range to do their thing.
Right.
When you've got a guitar amp that's filling it up to begin with, it's just a mess at that point,
Yeah.
So we used to, it was tough in the studio to convince some people that like, no, you got to back the bass down on your amp, man. It's just not, it's not necessary. But like I said, it's rock and roll. Some people just want to feel that, or they spend a lot of money on something and they want to use it anyway. So, you kind of have to deal with the egos a little bit.
Sure. Interesting. Okay. So now let's get to the precipice of you building amps.
Mm-hmm. So that just started out, the original one I did, I sort of had a fear, although I was always playing around with electronics, I had a fear of high voltage. I had given myself a little bit of a shock when I was younger, and I kind of stayed away from that. I dealt with a lot of like, I built pedals for a little while just for my friends, nothing crazy. But I always had this idea of like really wanting to build an amp. It just seemed like
it's like the biggest electronic challenge you can do as a guitar player. I mean,
exactly,
pretty much.
Yeah, I mean, I just had that idea of like, I've owned some great amps, I want to build one someday. And I was doing a blog for a little while, just for fun. And did my girlfriend give me the idea, or did I kind of come up with it? I don't know.
I think you came up with it.
Well, she listens to this. She might have some. But, yeah. So I said, I'm gonna build an amp. I got the Dave Hunter, I believe it's called the Guitar Amp Handbook, and he had a chapter in there about building an amp, and he sort of give you the step-by-step things. So I got the parts, started messing with it, and I was really, really afraid to turn it on for the first time. So much so that I actually took it to a local amp tech, a great guy named Jamie Simpson at Booyah Amplifier Services, another New Jersey guy. He builds great amps. He does a lot of Hammond organ work, really, really cool stuff. But I brought it to him because I was bringing my amps to him before that. And I said, hey, I kind of built this thing. I'm really afraid to turn it on. So he checked it out, changed a couple things, taught me a couple things, and then fired it up, and it worked. And I was like, wow,
That's so cool.
You know, we laugh, but for everybody out there, if you guys get those amp kits from, you know, wherever that sell them, you guys have to be extremely careful. I mean, that's a lot of voltage you're messing with.
Oh yeah, I mean, once you sort of once you learn what it can do to you, like it definitely changes your perspective on it. Because going back to when I was saying, you know, being a teenager and ripping things open and playing around with them, I had a Marshall 800 head, the old JCM 800.
Yeah.
And just for fun, I decided I was going to open this thing up on my dad's old workbench. And I just wanted to see it. I didn't want to mess with it. You know, I didn't have the soldering iron hooked up or anything. But thinking back to that, I could have that thing could have been holding 400 volts.
Yeah,
even
just
powered off, you know.
Yeah, just grab onto those little blue cylinders on the bottom there.
Every time somebody tells me something like that, I go back to I had a Marshall combo, an 8120, I think it was called, and I decided it wasn't acting really nice, and so I said, well, I clearly just need to clean the inside of it.
Right.
So I took it apart, and I mean. I'm just glad nothing happened.
He lived to tell.
I did live to tell, and I didn't get shocked. I'm like, really? I didn't, because nobody told me. You know, there's not a book out there that says, "Hey, don't touch your amp."
No, there's plenty now.
At least on the cover, it doesn't say.
They all have a page that says that.
Yeah.
Right.
If it's at the end of the book, I guess by then it doesn't matter.
Yeah, right. So, anyways, okay. So now you built your first amp.
Yeah.
That was a big raging success, and then
Oh
what?
yeah, I still gig with it. I still gig with that amp at least once a month.
Oh, that's good. Is that the one with the flag on it?
No, that's a funny story, but no, the first one I did is just like a little tweed combo. It's just like a little 10-inch, kind of like a 50s Princeton style combo.
Mm-hmm.
Volume and tone control. That's it. And then a couple friends heard it at gigs and said, "Hey, you know, could you build me one?" And I said, "Sure. Just pay me for the parts." You know, I wasn't at that point. I had no idea that it was ever going to become what it is now. So I'm building these one-off amps for my friends. And every time I did one, I sort of learned a little more and a little more. And then I had a Princeton Reverb reissue that I hadn't really been playing much. And I said, you know what? I'm going to open this thing up and basically gut it and rebuild it to like 1965 specs, because the reissues are not 65 spec. I don't care what they say.
Right.
You know, I don't care what number they put on them. They sound good. Don't get me wrong, but they make them a little different now. So so I gutted it, and it probably took me about a month to do that, you know, just in my spare time. But that was a big one, because that was like learning about reverb, tremolo, things that I hadn't dealt with yet.
Mm-hmm.
Really, really fun. So then I just started rebuilding anything I get my hands on. I got like a 68 Bandmaster head from someone that wasn't working. Fixed that up, turned it around, you know, just really started getting into that aspect of it. And then it was like I kind of started to build some things that were a little more unique, and got away from the, you know, the clones and the kits and the copies, and started like experimenting with circuits to say like, okay, Fender was doing this in the 50s. You know, where could we take it from here? You know, where could we improve on some things? I know that's like sacrilege to say to some people, because they don't think those amps can be made better. But
I mean, anybody that made amps after that basically did that.
Yeah, absolutely.
That's what Marshall did.
Yeah, that's Marshall took the Fender Bassman. Yeah.
Is there anything that sticks out that would be obvious that you had in mind that you wanted to change from those circuits?
I just wasn't. There were some aspects of like the tweed circuits. There was like a decay to the note that a lot of them have that like I didn't like. And I was like, what's causing that? And how could I smooth that out? How could I make that better? Mm-hmm. So that was something I went for right away. And then it was, you know, like the Fender, like the reverb that they use, you know, it sounds great, but it takes up a lot of real estate in the amp. It uses 1.5 tubes. I said, well, you know, could we accomplish the same result with one tube? You know, could we trim it down a little bit, make it less of a I really didn't want to build anything with reverb for like the first year I was doing this because it was a pain. It was like it was annoying. It was cost more money.
They make good reverb pedals.
I was just going to say that. Yeah.
And when you bump the amp, it doesn't sound like lightning.
That's, it's funny. I just built an amp for someone with reverb, and I played a gig with, it was a good friend of mine who I play with a lot. And he just tried to move it back a few inches at the gig, and that the lightning and thunder came out of it.
Yep.
we had a good laugh because neither of us had heard that in a long time. So that was fun. It was like, whoa, I forgot they do that.
I know. It scares the crap out of you at first. You're like, what is that? What is it? Whoa.
Yep. Then you reach for the volume and you're like, no, you actually have to turn the reverb down.
That's right.
It's still coming out of the amp,
Still pouring through loud and clear.
It's like my first instinct didn't work.
Right.
But that's a good story, and that's a great way to get to where I'm at now in the company, because a good friend of mine, a guitarist named Matt Knapp, who bought one of my first amps. I think he has like number 3 that I ever built, and then came up to me a couple months ago and said, "Hey, I heard this really cool Vox amp on the Doug and Pat show. Are you guys familiar with that? They're like YouTube podcast."
Yeah, my pickups are actually on one of their episodes.
Oh, cool. I'm gonna have to look for that. Awesome. So they do this episode with a Vox AC10 SRT, which was like, we're gonna do a whole history lesson on it in one of our demos. But this amp was like briefly made by Vox in like 1965. Totally different than anything else in their lineup at the time. Used EL84s, but other than that, it bared no resemblance to any other Vox amp. And it just sounds great. It's like this really cool hybrid of like American and British sounds. So my friends, he sent me the video. He said, do you think you could build me one? Because I can't find one for sale anywhere. And I said, well, I'll try. So I dug up a schematic. It took me a long time just to find what I think is an accurate schematic, and then had to redraw it. And the reverb circuit they used in the original is considered like terrible by anyone who's tried one. I mean, I think Vox used that reverb in a lot of their early amps, and it's not great. So it was like, well, let's try to do this with an improved reverb and see if we can keep like the fundamental sound of the amp intact with a better reverb, like a Fender style reverb. So I spent like about a month on that for him, and just delivered it to him last week, and he's thrilled with it, and I'm really thrilled with it too. So it's going to become, I think it's going to become like sort of our flagship model moving forward.
Oh, that's cool.
That's awesome.
It's not on the website yet. I'm actually staring at number 2 because Matt has number 1 because he owns it, but number 2 is in front of me, like 90% built right now. And we actually, I emailed the Doug and Pat show to see if they'd be interested in comparing it to the originals. So we're going to send it out to them to check out.
That's cool.
That could be really fun. Yeah.
Well,
I mean, unless they think it's nuts.
When you get that, when that happens, make sure you, if you wouldn't mind sending it, just a link to it on our, to us, and we can get it out there for the audience to check out. Yeah.
Very cool. Yeah, I'll definitely do that.
So flagship model.
Well, I hope so. It seems that a lot of people, looking at the comments and things on the Doug and Pat show page, a lot of people seemed like they'd be interested in an amp like that, and there's really nothing like it out there that I know of.
So you said, it's 210s, right?
The original was 210s. It was a head and a 2x10 cab. The one I built for my friend is a 1x12. Because that's what Doug and Pat demoed theirs through, and that was, he preferred the way that sounded.
Interesting.
So we did a 1x12 for him. We used a Weber Silver Bell speaker, which really favorite speaker of mine. The Alnico Silver Bell is really nice. And the 2x10 we're going to do with, we're going to mismatch them. We're going to do a Blue Dog 10-inch and a Silver Bell 10-inch, both from Weber as well.
Interesting.
So it's going to be cool. It's tough to tell what Vox was going for originally with it, because after going through the schematic and kind of comparing it around, it's really similar to an Ampeg Jet combo. from the early 60s.
Hmm.
So it kind of made me wonder if they were trying to do something more American, and maybe it kind of flopped for them.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know, because you can't find them anywhere. They're super rare, and they don't really, the fact that they're called Voxes is almost like deceiving, because they really don't sound anything like an AC30 or an AC15.
So specifically outside of the speaker, can you kind of help us understand why this might sound different enough to like really want?
Aside from the speaker, compared to what? Compared to just the other things that are out there right now?
Well, yeah,
Or-
I mean, if it's this amp that this elusive amp that the first time you guys heard it, we were like, whoa,
Yeah.
we got to make this. What was it? What was the whoa?
I would say it was really like that combination of tones from like what you're used to from an American amp and what you're used to from a British amp, and then they sort of like meet somewhere in the middle of the Atlantic, I guess.
That's cool.
Yeah, because it's got aspects of both. Like it's like an American front end with this like EL84 British output to it,
Hmm.
and I guess the speakers the original ones would have been Celestians made for Vox. So, I guess that sort of ties into the British output side of things.
That's cool.
And then the reverb we put in it is really completely different, because I didn't want to copy the Vox reverb because nobody liked it anyway. And I didn't want to do a 100% true Fender reverb, but it's definitely that style. But we went with like a 3-spring tank with a shorter decay to it. So it doesn't have that. It can get a little surfy, but it's really more of a musical reverb, rather than like, oh, just crank it up and let me show off with this crazy effect kind of thing.
Right.
It's like there's actual range in it, and you could find multiple sweet spots. Because I feel like with a lot of the old Fenders, it's like, yeah, they sound great on 2.
Mm-hmm.
And then if you're going to play, spring surf music, then they sound great on, 7 or 8. But there's
Right.
not much in between that people really dig that much.
I think that's probably one of the genesis for actual reverb pedals. Like it's at some point you're just going like, hey, we need something different here.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. Something a little more useful
Yeah.
across the
More
spectrum.
controllable.
That's cool.
Yeah.
So,
Mhm.
your style of amp, for those who are not familiar with, the particular way that you've designed amps, how can you give us a little bit of color on what you're doing that sort of makes it very Henry?
Well, I would say some of those things that I go for in it, like we were talking about before, like smoothing out some of the aspects that Tweed amps have,
Mhm.
that was really like one of the first things I got into was, let's make a Tweed more useful. Let's make a Tweed that could do really nice clean tones and then blend into a natural overdrive without being harsh.
Mm.
And that was big. That led to the 20T
So
and the 40T.
you're taming the
models.
treble a little bit.
Yeah, definitely smoothing it out a little bit.
Okay.
Yeah, because I feel like some of those, and a lot of that had to do with the speakers used back in the 50s. There's people that love those old Jensens, and then there's people that can't wait to get rid of them.
Right.
So I could see why people love them, but I like something that holds up a little more, something a little firmer.
Right.
Um,
And then one thing that I noticed about yours, you're taking some fun liberties with the actual aesthetics of it as well.
I was
yeah.
going to ask about that too. Like what inspired you to use, like the tooled leather and the wood panel and burning the, the volume, tone, what have you, right into. I mean, I think that's great.
Thanks, man. I appreciate that.
And also, could I get a pair of matching cowboy boots?
Tweed
I
cowboy
don't know how
boots.
comfy.
with
No
the
promises
tooled
as to how
leather.
comfy they'd be.
Yeah.
Do you want volume controls on them
Yeah.
too, or
Yeah, why not?
Burn them in.
I don't see really anything like it. I think it looks awesome.
Thanks, man. I really appreciate that. It was, again, looking for something different. I didn't want to, the first few amps I built were just Tweed covered. I said, there's a million of these out there. I need to do something a little different. I was kind of trying out some different things. I tried like a black Western Tolex, and it was cool, but the brown looks way better in my opinion. The brown kind of shows the texture better. The
Mhm.
black, from the distance, the black just looks like a black, Tolex amp.
Right.
but the brown, even from the, like, I'm looking at one from across the room right now, and you can still see the detail in it.
That's cool.
And when we combine that with the wicker grill, well, not all of them have wicker, but the ones that do, I think that combination really looks cool.
Now, if you do buy one of JP's amps with the leather tooling on it, right? Then you got to go to Tone Snob and get a leather tooled pedal board with matching tooled leather case.
Oh, cool! I gotta check this out.
That would be awesome.
You gotta get a leather,
just a full set, like
leather tooled telly. Yeah.
I might have to reach out and do a little. See if we could do a package deal or something.
Oh, that'd be sweet.
Yeah,
that could be fun.
Tooled boots.
I did a just for a friend of mine. I put a tooled leather pick guard on his telly. I kind of just I was doing some work on his telly. It needed a new pick guard, and I said, "Well, I'm going to surprise him." He was a good friend, so I said, "Well, I'll throw this on as a gift and see if he likes it." And that kind of gave me the idea with the amps because it looked really cool. And I wear like paisley shirts all the time, but I didn't want to go for like a crazy loud paisley Tolex on the amp. Like I've seen some guys do it, but I didn't really. I thought that would be a little too niche, and I thought the brown might be like something that like the old school guys could get into, the Austin crowd, the Nashville crowd,
right?
Well as kind of a modern thing,
Well, so. You're gonna need to do a tracksuit one because you're in Jersey now. So
we'll do the soprano version.
That would be amazing.
I love it.
If you do.
And now I'm picturing it.
Yeah, right.
Cracking me up.
Boy,
that's fantastic. We'll put a little stallion on it too. A little horse.
Right.
Yeah, or just the horse's head.
Be wicked.
Yeah.
Oh boy, don't hate me, everybody. We love you guys out there.
It's okay to hate him.
Tony said that, not me. Don't come to my house.
His name's Tony. He's gonna fit in good around here anyway. So
you got a problem with that?
Yeah.
Well, cool, man. I'm really excited that we got to hear your story and talk about a lot of the stuff around your this. Obviously, you make amps, but getting to talk about all the things around it as well. Just out of curiosity, like, what if someone is trying to buy an amp from you? Are they made to order? Are you stocking? How does that work?
So I try to keep one each of my like the models on my website. I try to keep one or two each of them around just to have on hand for people that might want to demo them or order one. Other than that, I pretty much build to order. I try to keep enough parts inventory that I could put one together like within a week for someone if they want.
Right.
Unless it's like a real custom request, which I'd say like my business is about 50-50 between the stock models on the site and then just people that say, hey, I want an amp with Fender cleans and, like a switchable distortion or something. And I'll figure something out. And
that's rad.
Do that. And I really love doing that. It's it can be time consuming with sort of the R&D that goes into it, but it's really fun. And then if somebody wants another one, or somebody says, hey, I heard that amp, it's always easier to do the second time around.
Excellent.
So that's actually getting back to the control panels. That's how I got into doing that because I needed something that was customizable. And because I could order, stock ones by the dozen, but then people would say, oh, well, instead of tremolo, could I have, full EQ? And sure, why not? But I need to have like a template that I could change for that.
Sure.
Instead of keeping, then I'd have to keep a dozen of everything possible on hand. And that's not fun. That's expensive.
Yeah. And it's not as unique.
Right. Exactly.
Yeah, that's cool. And just for the record, I want everybody to know that when we did contact JP, the first thing he said was, cool, I'll send you an amp. and like legit, that's huge of you to say that, considering that you don't have a stock of them and that, amps are tricky things to ship. So partially because I didn't want to have anything happen to one of those amps, and also the postage for both of us would I might as well just buy the dang thing.
Just get a bus ticket to
Wait
Jersey.
a minute, that was what he was trying to get me to do. Oh, you slickster. But that was a very generous offer, and so we didn't get to try one out. Hopefully someday we will, but I just wanted to share that so that people weren't thinking that like you were withholding amp experience for us.
Not a problem at all.
Yeah, we just decided to say, hey, we'll talk about it and get everybody else pumped up on it. So anyways, That's awesome, man. Thank you so much for sharing. We are going to dive into
Would You Rather?
All right. The human Leslie speaker.
That's right. All right. So my buddy Zach sold a guitar of his. So in remembrance of that really cool guitar he had, this week's Would You Rather is dedicated to his situation. And I will then tell you what the Would You Rather is. So
Yes, let's
would you rather? Would you rather? It's very simple. Would you rather have, and it's going to sound similar until I explain things. Would you have a 1958 Gibson Les Paul Jr.? Or would you rather have a 1962 Gibson Les Paul Jr.?
Yep.
Now, it sounds similar, right?
Okay.
When you look at pictures of these,
You got some splaining to do.
very different guitars.
Yes.
Very different.
That's
so
true.
the 1958, you're going to have more of the single cut look, and some of them I think were
Double cuts.
double cut, but they did not have that. In 62, they were the SG type
Yes.
looking. So very much a different guitar. Also, the neck profiles were very different.
Oh, right. Yeah,
And,
fit our
totally.
60s.
Yeah,
It's like-
60s are like
Totally
pencils.
different. Yep. The 60s were a wide, very thin, and then the 50s were like a
Baseball bat.
Baseball bat, yeah.
Yeah,
Very
that's fair.
round and supple.
Clubby.
Yes. So, yeah,
What are the colors?
well, in 58, I think you could get like a.
No, for this Would You Rather. What
of
are
course,
the color
we gotta have
options?
colors, right?
Yeah.
So, probably a red. Well, actually, let's do a Sunburst 58, and then they didn't have Sunburst back then. You picked a color for the 58.
TV yellow.
TV. Oh, yeah. What am I
Nice.
thinking? So TV yellow, and the 62, of course, is going to be a cherry finish because that's pretty much what they came with. The juniors did
Almost all of them, yeah.
almost, unless you had a custom color, but usually you didn't want a custom color in that lower standard model. So that's a Would You Rather.
Okay. TV yellow, and what color is the earlier one?
No, the later one's
The
going to be
58's going to be a
cherry.
TV yellow.
Right, and
the
that's
62.
the double cut that we sort of know and love today.
yeah,
The-
like
the-
ours.
like ours, like
Yep.
like
Yeah.
the one that Jared and I have, the one that you see, like Johnny Thunder style.
Yeah.
That's okay.
It's got a flat top.
Flat top.
Doesn't
Yeah.
have the arch top. So
And then
And
that
the
one
SG
would have
is
been
the
a
same.
wraparound,
Yep.
right?
Yeah, of
A
course.
wraparound
single.
tail
Yep.
stop.
One single P90.
Yep.
Yep.
Yeah.
And the 62 is the same way.
Yes.
except it looks like
It's pointier.
it looks
Yeah.
a little bit
Looks
more
a
like
little
a
devilish.
SG.
Zach's was actually 61. There's really hardly a difference. And his the wraparound bridge on the 62 will be slightly cantered.
Hmm.
Really?
Yeah.
All right.
Cantered.
Yes. Yeah. Well, that's a word.
I know.
You don't know if it's the right word. That's
No, I know what he means.
I know it's
Yeah.
a word.
It's offset. You're saying the earlier ones were not?
No. The later ones were not. They were.
They had the lightning bolt bridges.
That's right.
Okay.
The later ones had the lightning bolts.
Okay.
Slightly later, like mid.
so staggered.
Just kind of.
Yeah, well, yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
Well, I'm talking about the saddle parts.
Well, what we
The
call the
saddles.
lightning bolt are like the raised portions.
Yeah,
that-
that's what I'm saying. That's
Yeah,
Yeah.
the saddle parts.
and what
on
they
the-
were
on
able
the
to do
tailstock.
was mount a
Tony, you can
tailpiece.
call them the raised portions, but the rest of the world will call them the saddles.
No, they're not really. Not quite.
Okay, anyways,
Technically
let's
not
move
a
on.
saddle.
No, anyways. Okay, so we're clear. What color is the
58 is yellow.
TV yellow.
TV yellow? Johnny Thunders style, or
You're so focused on the colors. And 62 is cherry.
Cherry red.
right, and that's more
With the little
where
half
we're getting
mustache.
to the SG. All
Yep.
right, okay.
Little half
SG.
mustache guard.
It's just a more slender-ish one.
The SG is going to be way lighter too.
Oh, totally.
Yeah.
Yeah. All right, Tony, what are you doing?
58 all the way.
Mhm.
That's like one of my all-time favorite guitars. I love, the thinness and the lightness of an SG is nice, but there's just something more substantial about. No, Todd is getting that sick feeling in the back of his throat.
I'm throwing up in my mouth a little bit.
Nah, but I do have to say whoever designed that little half mustache guard on the SG Juniors, which I guess this is still a Les Paul, but
That is a nice
I
one.
think it's pretty cool.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But so then you've got TV yellow with a nice solid tortoise guard on a 58.
Yes,
Yeah.
Delicioso.
I'll be right over.
That's right.
All right, JP, what are you doing?
I'm going 58 for a lot of reasons, but I think the neck would be number one on those. I really like that neck.
Wow.
Okay. Solid. J-Rod.
I'm going to go with the 62.
Yeah, because you like SGs.
I like the neck too.
Mm-hmm.
I like a thin but wide,
Which is really weird because you
60s
have
profile.
bare paws for hands. Actually, bare claws.
Yeah, I got fat sausage fingers too.
Yeah, well, they're just big, but when you have a thin neck, it's
Yeah.
just like I don't
No,
get it.
The bare necessities.
Been
That's
playing
why a bear can
Been
rescue
playing for
us.
30 years.
Yeah, I guess that's what you're.
I love it, man.
All right.
I love that feel.
I'm doing 58 all
Nobody
the
asked
dang
you.
way. I don't. Yeah. To the
58.
point where I had to get one that wasn't a 58 because I liked it so much.
Yeah.
So yeah, Zach sold his 61 Gibson Les Paul Jr. SG style to a pretty cool dude, and then he's out to get a 58. I think that's what he really wants.
Now, correct me if I'm wrong, but which I probably am. I often am. That those early quote unquote SGs, the ones that we're talking about, the juniors, right?
Yeah.
Did those come in was it? A lot of times you'll see them now, and they're almost teal looking. Like
You can get a
that'd
custom
be-
color.
That would be later.
back
That's
then.
Pelham blue.
That's Pelham blue.
Pelham, yeah.
well, but I
Yeah.
mean the discolored ones because I know they re-released in Pelham. Were they Pelham back then?
Not until the mid
60s.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, I've seen a couple that kind of have it look like a discolored Pelham,
Yeah, they turn
yeah,
green.
the lacquer turns yellow,
Yeah.
which makes the blue green.
but that was on a
Beautiful
later
guitars.
year. But because they were
Slightly.
still that
That'll be like
slimmer body.
65, 66.
Yeah.
Not to the full SG stage yet.
No, that's full SG.
Is it?
So here's the story. So by the late 50s,
Right.
Les Paul either became unhappy with the program that Gibson had with him, and then they, without consulting him, Gibson rolled out this new body style, the SG, what we call the SG style
Right.
today.
Solid
But-
guitar.
But that was
that was the new.
that was the new Les
style.
Paul. And
Right,
the first
yeah.
couple of years, they were technically Les Paul
And it says
models.
Les Paul on the,
truss
truss
rod
guide.
covers, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, and then I think through I don't know if there was any legal action or whatever, but Les Paul decided
He didn't like him.
He didn't like them. He said they were too sharp, and he didn't like the way they played.
Yeah.
But
Me neither.
me neither.
They-
You're just like Les Paul.
Just like him.
They still make them today, and they still sell them.
Yeah. they
Yeah,
do.
so that's kind of beyond the first 1 or 2 years of the SG body shape. They were then referred to as SGs.
So the year that we're talking about before they became
62 would
SGs,
still be called a Les Paul.
Yeah.
Okay. And that went from years
That was 61 and 62, probably.
and they only ever made them in cherry red.
White. They made
White.
the custom in white.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, because you see some pictures of Les Paul with playing a 3 pickup
Yep.
SG. and
Yeah, that was a
in
custom
white.
color. That
Okay.
was a custom.
Gotcha. All right. Always learn something new here on the show.
Uh-huh.
Oh man, so many awesome things. Let's see here. Tony, Why don't we thank a couple real quick?
Yeah, at this time of the show, we like to spend a little time thanking some very special people.
That's right.
And we call them our executive producers.
Mm-hmm.
And to become an executive producer, you have to go over to patreon.com and become a patron. Now, there are a couple of different levels for no matter what your budget is. But the beauty, Todd's falling asleep. The beauty of being the toppest, is toppest?
Yes.
Toppest?
The most high.
The most high.
Oh.
The highest of the high.
Yes.
The executive producer level is...
Well, you get to have your name written on the thing, or read on the thing.
Oh, wow.
written on the thing. Well, he blew it.
You have your name written down, and then we read it on the thing.
There you go.
So there's at every level there's various things like T-shirts and stickers
Barefoot
and
buttons and stickers and all kinds of
pics
stuff. Who are
and
the
all
people?
kinds of stuff.
And stuff.
But when you're an executive producer, you're somebody special.
Yes. Well, and aside from just helping our show so very much.
Helping us survive. So I got the pen pointed at me. That means it's time to read the list.
Mm-hmm.
So let's read from newest to oldest.
Sounds good.
Does that sound good to you? Okay, let's do it. Ken Sayers, Corey Nigro, Doug Gann, Brad Partridge, Michael Van Zant, Doug Christ, Zach J. Wright, Gary Goodman, and Son Brackett. Woohoo!
Howdy.
Howdy do. Darren Gregory, Robert Marfleet, John Anglin, Chris Kearney, Sean S. Oliver Gonzalez, John Daly, Robin Smith, Pete Marshall, Carlos Mancha, Matt Brammer, David Wolfson, Martin Cliff, and our original executive producer,
Tom
Barazin.
My
yes,
man.
sir. Thank you, everyone, for helping us out. We could really use some new ones. If you've been thinking about it, just start out if everybody who's listening just did the $1. I can't even
10%.
We're not begging you. Or
No.
If 10% of the people
Well,
that
then, no,
listen,
let's just say everybody because
Let's just say
you know,
everybody.
If everybody just did just the single $1 thing.
hey man,
I
everybody's
can't even
doing it. Everybody is doing it.
express how much it would help. And honestly, that's $12. It's
That's it.
$12
not
for a
much.
full year of hearing our show.
That's right.
And if you just go to the 5, it's less than a crappy used pedal.
That's right.
Or a cup of coffee.
Several cups of coffee. Anyways, your help is appreciated and much thankful for. We are thankful for it. Wow. All right, JP, help us get out of here. Where can people find you on the internet?
You could find us at www.henryamps.com, and you can email me, jp@henryamps.com. And I love to hear from people, and I love to talk amps. So,
And you've got a
Definitely
great Instagram.
oh yeah, Instagram's probably been the best for us actually.
Mm-hmm.
How do you? What? I don't even know how to tell. I guess if you just search Henry Amps
Yep.
or Henry Amplification on Instagram, we'll come right up. I think it's at Henry Amplification.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's something like that'll work.
Just look
Yeah.
for the tooled leather.
Yeah.
There you go.
Tony.
Well, let's just say you need a custom pick guard.
That's right.
Or you want to change out pickups.
Why not?
I want to put these Chevron Flying V pickups in my Telecaster.
Mm-hmm. Somebody's going to do it.
Absolutely
Somebody's got to do it.
Awesome.
If you're an executive producer,
I
no,
think
wait a minute.
JP should do it.
JP, let's do it.
Yeah,
So
right, man.
go over to PickGuardian.
Wait, legitimately, that would be amazing. A hand tooled or like that tooled leather Telecaster pick guard with those with the
Boomerang
Gibson
pickups?
boomerang pickups.
Yes.
Holy moly!
That would be really cool, wouldn't it?
Yes.
Do it.
Let's
Okay.
just do it.
Keep going, Tony.
Go to pickguardian.com.
Mm-hmm.
And if you'd like to see some of the projects I've been working on,
Then you can look at my Instagram.
look at my
The
Instagram.
gold
Yeah.
pick guards.
But yeah, that would be cool. And I
it.
do some things on Facebook. But yeah, check out the website.
Okay, excellent, Jared.
If you need some custom pickups built, new looking or old, go to BrandonWompickups.com.
Or if you just want to buy ones that are already built.
Absolutely. Or if you need a repair done and you need it done quick and right, I have a very short lead time. And also look at the stuff that I'm doing on Instagram. I'm always posting cool stuff on there.
There you go.
Brandon Want Pickups.
If you want to get a hold of me, you can send me an email at todd@theguitarknobs.com. And also you can direct message me on Instagram. Everyone, we want to give JP a humongous thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you guys so much for having me. I really appreciate this.
You bet.
Awesome.
It was really fun talking with you. What is it? Once a stranger, always a friend, something like that.
Sure.
Yeah, I
That
think
sounds
that's
good.
how it goes. Isn't that how it goes? Something like
I
that.
like the sound of that.
Yeah. All right. Well, hey, everybody, we appreciate you hanging out. Make sure you check us out on all of the places to find us at. That's great English. And I'm going to leave us with there. Have a great guitar week and subscribe.
Yeah.
I'm going to let these guys open up their tall boys real quick.
Oh, now I'm jealous.
Yeah.
Well, that's it for these knobs. Please visit our Patreon page at patreon.com/theguitarknobs. Visit our website at theguitarknobs.com for all of our past episodes, 4 on the Floor blog, and other good stuff. You can connect with us on social too at our Facebook page and share your gear and stories on our Facebook group. Also, be sure to check out our Instagram at Guitar Knobs. Catch you next time.